Hey guys, Jess with Peak Wreaths. Let's finish up our, well, not finish up. Let's make the bow for our nativity blue and silver Christmas wreath. Okay, so we have a pipe cleaner, scissors. We always use our bow, which you don't need, but I think is helpful. I was going to use this ribbon, but I don't think I actually am, because this wreath has kind of turned more into like not really rustic. We're going to be using this one, which has sparkles and pine cones. We're going to be adding in greenery that has pine cones on it. We're going to be using a little of that, this silver, this white sparkle, and then this rustic snowflake. I think that's what we're going to do. All right, so we're going to start off with this one. We're going to be putting this bow on the bottom of our wreath underneath the sign. So we're going to have some nice long tails. I've been making wreaths lately with the bow on the bottom instead of on the top, and I really like the way that it's been looking, and people have been buying them, so they like the way it looks too. So we're going to start with a 14-inch tail. We're always putting it down here. We always use wired ribbon, of course, and we're going to start with 6-inch loops on either side. We always turn it and put it down into our bow maker. You can measure it out, make sure that there's 6 inches or slightly over 6 inches. And then you have the unfinished side facing up. You gather it, turn it, and push it down. Okay, and that's what it it does help having a mat that has the measurements on it, so that you can make sure that the loops are the same size. And then just gather it, twist it, put it down into that bow maker. I like to spread open the loops so I don't have to do that step later on. And again, this bow maker is called a bow dabra. I use it to make all of my bows, but you don't necessarily need that. I just like it because then I don't have to hold on to the ribbon at all while I'm building the bow. So I always just put it back onto the spool, and I always use a straight pin just to help keep it from unraveling. And then I like to dovetail the ends. You can always leave them straight, or you can cut them on a diagonal. It's up to you. All right, so we have 2 on each side. Now we're gonna come in with 1. I think we're gonna use this snowflake. We do have some burlap mesh with the white snowball in our wreath, and then also the sign has a little bit of a distressed edge, so I was trying to keep those natural tones in there. I think I'm going to help incorporate them when I pull in the greenery that I choose to add into the wreath. I never knew before I made wreaths that, okay, we're pulling this in about it's about a 1/2 inch shorter than the layer underneath it. That there's so many different types of pine greenery. Like, I thought it was like there's only one kind. So I think it's pretty much like, you know, when you go buy a Christmas tree and people are like, well, what kind of Christmas tree do you want? Oh, there's more than one kind of Christmas tree? It's kind of the same type of thing. So there's lots of different types of pine, just like there's lots of different types of Christmas trees. There's same thing with holly berries. You know, you can get matte berries, you can get shiny berries, small ones with snow on them, all different types. So you match it for the feels of your design. Okay, so we're just gonna set these aside as we're done so that it doesn't get too smushy on us. Okay, and I always make sure that I used wired ribbon, because that way your wreath will look beautiful year after year. All right, we're gonna be doing 2 of this. I know I use this in my wreath, but as long as you don't use the same ribbon like on the bottom of the bow as you do in your wreath, then I think it looks just fine. Sometimes when you add all the same ribbons as you add in the ribbon tails for your wreath, then I've had it when I first started making wreaths. First of all, I did not use bows when I first started making wreaths because I wasn't confident in my bow making abilities. So I didn't make bows, but when I started making bows, I would, I'd be like, well, I want to make sure that it matches, so then I would use the exact same ribbons in my bow as I used in my ribbon tails, and then I would spend all that time and all that money in the supplies for that bow, but then you couldn't see it. It would blend in too much with the wreath, and we don't want that. We don't want to waste, you know, our time or our energies. We want to make sure that our bow stands out, that it adds to the wreath, that it's another way to incorporate more colors, more textures, to tie in, you know, what you got going on. So you want it to match, and you want it to look like a cohesive look, but you don't want it to match so much that you don't see it, right? That's not what you're going for. So this is what we got going on so far. I have a little bit of a further view so that you guys can get a feel of what we're doing. And if you need more practice making bows, you can check out my other videos. I always break the wreath down into all the different steps. So if you need more help on one step than another, you can always just watch that video. I always try to make my loops on that level the same length. Okay, so then we're going to be doing this white one. Another way that you can kind of figure out what layers, like what colors you want on each layer, is like I can tell by looking at this that I don't have a ton of this ribbon left. So I wouldn't want to use it on a layer that has 2 on each side because I might run out. Okay. So we're just going to do 1 on each side with this, which I think is just going to work out just enough as I see it coming off of the spool. We're going to do a loop over here. And then we're going to pull it on the tail. We're going to have a little bit left over, which we can actually use as the bump. I would call it the bump. It's a little part in between the loops on the very top layer. You'll see in a moment. I'm going to peel that off. As the children would say, it's kind of satisfying, but it is fun to use up the end of a roll of ribbon, because then, you know, you use the entire roll, you don't have any remnants left over, and it kind of tells you inside that you can buy more ribbon, right? All right, so we're gonna finish off with the silver. We're gonna dovetail that like we always do. We're gonna pull it down. Got a little bit of fluff or something on there. Okay, there we go. And we're just gonna gather it, twist it. The glitter in these top 2 layers is really gonna help this wreath stand out. I did use silver glitter in one of the ribbons in the ribbon tails, and then this silver glitter is really gonna tie in that look and that ribbon while incorporating the blues that are in the sign and in the other ribbon tails. As I get towards the top of this bow, it's starting to get a little bit tall, so it's not sticking in my bow dabra as well, but we're gonna make it stay. Okay, there we go. Most of these ribbons are either from, let's see, it says Maker's Mark, so I believe that's Sam's. These top 2 are from Craft Outlet, which is an online seller, craftoutlet.com. You don't have to have any type of special license or anything. Anybody can shop there. And they have free shipping, but I don't know, you have to spend a certain amount to get that free shipping, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. All right, so we have this much left of this. We're gonna dovetail it, and then we're gonna stick it right on top. We're gonna kind of measure out how big we want that bump, and then just gather it, and then turn that tail that was facing the wrong way. So it looks like this, and we're just gonna set it down right there. And then when we put our pipe cleaner in there, we'll have one more little use for that sparkly and not have to waste it or try to figure out another project to use them. All right, so I'm using a green pipe cleaner. I used the pine ties in the wreath that were already attached to the wreath base, but I have learned that pine ties, like, because you can buy pine ties that look like pipe cleaners, but they're a lot shorter than regular pipe cleaners, and they're also a lot thicker. So if you try to use one for attaching your bow, A lot of times what happens is the tie is so short that you don't have enough length to attach it to your wreath securely. So then you end up having to attach another tie to it, and then you wonder, like, are they gonna come apart? All right, so the back looks like this. I got one long one, and then we are going to just pull all of our tails where they belong. And then we have these white ones right here. In here it's a little bit more of a stiff ribbon. Okay. Like that. And then open up our loops a little bit. You do the final fluff when you put your wreath onto your when you put your bow onto your wreath, I should say. But doing this beforehand kind of helps that process, because then you don't have to do quite as much when you get it on your wreath. All right, here we go. We are all done. So there we go. It's all done, nice and full. It'll be so pretty for our wreath. Keep that in the middle. There we go. All right, see you next time.